Jahren, als unsere Partei gerade 7 Mann hoch war, sprach sie schon 2 Grundsätze aus. Erstens, sie wollte eine wahrhaftige Weltanschauungspartei sein. Und zweitens, sie wollte daher kompromisslos die einzige Macht und alleinige Macht in Deutschland.
Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. Yes, that was weird, and it was weird on purpose. You're hearing Adolf Hitler, and the crowd went wild. You know, and I put him on because, there's a lot of popular support for dictatorial individuals, or in our country's case today, dictatorial groups. The crowd went wild this past week when the Supreme Court passed lawless legislation, and I use that language carefully. It wasn't constitutionally held up. They passed like a legislative branch of its own legislation. One of the members of that court, Scalia, used that exact language. This is now a political body. It is not a legal body, he said himself, a member of that body, in his own disgust of what has happened. Words no longer have meaning of an exchange that is not established by a state, is established by the state. We should start calling this law SCOTUS care. In other words, the Supreme Court of the United States care. And as he observed regarding marriage, today's decree says that the ruler of 320 million Americans coast to coast is a majority of the 9 lawyers of the Supreme Court. And so that's what we become. And what that means, I don't know if you remember that course that you took, in political science course. You probably should have got some of it in history, but it's called an oligarchy. It is government by the few, and in this case, 9. We have 9 people, and to a very large extent, one who also has extra powers of his own that are unique, which is Barack Obama, who's not being effectively challenged now by anybody. And so this is no longer a free country, not by any stretch of the word. Sigmund?
Yeah, I'd also add federal judges, not just the Supreme Court, federal judges in general, and also, of course, Congress. But not all of Congress, just the majority. Actually, sometimes
Congress is largely a rubber stamp. It's laughable.
When the Republicans are in power, then it's the minority that actually controls Congress, because the Republicans just really have never figured out when they're in charge to be in charge and to lead. So it seems like lately, at least, we're supposed to be representative democracy, or a republic that has the states have rights, the people have proper representation, and all that's out the window. And now it's lobbyists, and it's corporations, and it's judges and unaccountable bureaucracy and bureaucrats that have never been elected, will never be elected, can't be fired, won't be fired. Lois Lerner with the IRS, that whole situation. And that's just one small example. The EPA, there's so many bureaucracies and organizations that have never been voted on, and yet they have such incredible influence over our lives every day.
Yeah, James Madison wrote that democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. He went on to say that we may define a republic to be a government which derives all its powers directly or indirectly from the great body of the people and is administered by persons holding their offices during pleasure, for a limited period, or during good behavior. It is essential to such a government that it be derived from the great body of the society, not from the inconsiderable proportion or a favored class of it. Otherwise, a handful of tyrannical nobles exercising their oppressions by a delegation of their powers might aspire to the rank of republicans and claim for their government the honorable title of republic. Henry David Thoreau said, "A wise man will not leave the right to the mercy of chance, nor wish it to prevail through the power of the majority. There is but little virtue in the action of masses of men." The term representative democracy was a 20th century expression used by apologists for democracy to make mob rule palpable. Rule by law, republic is what the founders always intended it. Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution says that we are guaranteed a republic form of government. The mob will not dictate what this country does. And now what we've done is we created now through multiple generations a pathetic, apathetic mob that thinks it has its power, but what it does is it defers its power to people that they believe are stronger and wiser than they are.
Right.
And what should be happening is, frankly, is that people like you and I think you and I have just given up. We think we've gone around a bend now of no return, because otherwise you and I would be out in the street protesting what has been taking place, regardless of even if you agreed or not by the decisions. We'd be protesting because the protestings were done in such a context of lawlessness.
I gave up on protesting before I ever started. I've never protested anything because I know it doesn't work. Protests themselves, picketing and all that nonsense, all you're doing is getting a sunburn or, getting your feet hurt. I mean, your back might be out of whack. You're not doing anything to actually affect change. And quite frankly, we're at the point now where our votes don't even matter.
Doesn't matter.
That's the saddest part.
We're not that far away from what Hillary and Obama have been talking about. The reason why they're talking about mandatory voting is in order to give legitimacy to the regime, like they do in North Korea. They have mandatory voting in North Korea, by the way.
Yeah.
It's done to give legitimacy to the regime. That's why it'll be done.
And they'll have 90% approval because
all they're getting is propaganda from a media that's in complete alignment with the government.
Well,
I'm telling you.
Not all the media.
Yeah.
Not all the media.
There's such a small... You have to work hard to find a media that doesn't agree with the government.
Can I tell you what the media does that is not in agreement with the government? You know what they're there to do? To make us feel better about, ourselves. Yeah. That's all. If you listen to like Fox News because they, berate Obama on a daily basis, that makes you feel better about yourself because
you're not the only one.
There are some people there who agree with you in your opinion.
And it also gives you some semblance of a free society. That's why it won't be crushed entirely.
But what does it actually do?
Yeah. Yeah. A great example is UPI was bought by conservatives about 20 years ago. No newspaper in the country uses UPI. Right. It's on life support. LA Times was almost purchased by the Koch brothers, and when that got out,
they were freaking
They were
out.
essentially frozen out. Yeah. The LA Times would become a rag in the perception of the mainstream media overnight. And so we are under Pravda. We're basically under Pravda. It's our government's version of that Marxist, news source. So anyway, got to wrap it up on that positive note. Do want to remind you, though, there's great content at usatoreview.com, but you better not think you live in a free society anymore, because if you do, you're fooling yourself. Have a good day. Spend it right here